scholars and experts educate and inform our continent. AfroScience Network, amplifying the voice of African scientists.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can all hear me clearly. If there's anybody having problems with the audio, you can just send me a message in the chat group. Welcome to the episode 4 of the AfroScience show, AfroScience Talk Show. Cyril, the founder of AfroScience Network. I usually don't come in front of the camera, but yeah, today you get to see me. Anyway, so today we have a topic that is dear to my heart, navigating international scholarship applications. And thankfully, we have Dr. Kelechukwu Onwukamike, who has been so gracious to accept our invitation to facilitate this show. And I think some of you know him already, and he's been doing a great job. I admire him a lot because he has time to help and mentor young people, and he's always so excited about it. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time. We are just going to have him take over everything and then run the show from beginning till end. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box. He's going to have time and go through all the questions with you. Thank you once again for joining us. Dr. Kelechukwu, you can take over now.
Okay, thank you very much, Cyril. I will just go over to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, very good. So you can still see a bit of decoration at my back from last week, Sunday. That was my birthday. So still have a bit of that.
Oh, wonderful.
Still in the background. Let me start by once more thanking you for the opportunity. As you know, I'm very connected and interested in AfroScience and also being part of it. And it's also nice that we use this kind of opportunity to provide this type of training. So I'm quite excited about it. It's a training I've given quite a lot, but as you know, what is good is always never enough, right? You can always do what is good repeatedly, just hoping that perhaps it's presented in another way that could make more sense for the listeners. Please, if you can't get me very well, just signify. So today I'm going to be talking about navigating international scholarship applications. Let me see if this should work. Okay, yeah, very good. So this is a slide that I always want to start my presentation with, because it's so important as to the reason of any other thing that you are doing, and that is the why. So why do you want to apply for an international scholarship? If your reason is about escaping from Ghana or escaping from Nigeria, that could be achieved in other ways, right? It mustn't necessarily be something that you must do through a scholarship. And the truth is that once this is your foundation, it becomes even more difficult to convince the selection committee that you are a right person. So nobody is going to give you a scholarship because your country is in a bad shape and you have to run away. You know, nobody would give you a scholarship because you are trying to find a better life. You are given a scholarship because you are an ID candidate. You are someone that the scholarship is looking for. That means you have what the scholarship is looking for, and you are looking for what the scholarship has. So you need to be clear on the why you want to even make an application in the first place. And why this is very important, or the reason why this is very important, is because once you are clear on your why, it gives you the resilience to go through the scholarship process, right? This is not just something you come across and in an instant you have an award. For some people, it takes quite a long time. And the question remains, what would be the motivation? What would be the strength? What would give you that tenacity to keep doing it until you get it? So define the why. even before starting the process, so that once those challenges start coming, you wouldn't easily give up because you are not getting the scholarship. So be clear on the reason. If you know that you really need this scholarship to move to the next step of your life, to advance in your career, to optimize or unleash your potentials, to make a difference in the society, then that reason, the stronger that reason is, the more you would be unwilling to quit on your scholarship journey. So take these slides, use the time, reflect, identify the why before you even start, okay? So that you do not get frustrated in the middle. Let me just give you a bit about myself for those that don't know or that have not been in my webinar before. So I've kind of separated or kind of demarcated my life journey into 4 phases. The first phase is what I call like my undergraduate studies, which was done in industrial chemistry in Nigeria. Then as for those that are not Nigerians, we have this 1-year youth service for everyone that graduates from Nigeria that I did in 2012. Then after that, before that, I started my scholarship applications as a 4th-year student. So that was sometime in 2010, and only got it in my 3rd trial. So in the 3rd year of my trials, I think I sent way over 50 emails to different professors. And just to show you that, again, it's not something that I know from the beginning. I had to go through different stages, right, to improve and then get to that point where I can now have that, stay on that platform to kind of share my experience with you. The phase 2 was when I got into the Erasmus Mundus scholarship, or Erasmus Mundus master's program, which was on advanced materials engineering. This was between 2013 and 2015. And it was done between the University of Augsburg in Germany and the University of Bordeaux in France. And after that, I moved into a Marie Curie PhD project on European Joint Doctoral in Functional Materials. And this was, again, similar to the Erasmus Mundus. It was also a dual PhD program. So I did the PhD between KIT, specialization on organic chemistry, and then for Bordeaux, this was on polymer chemistry. But my thesis was focused on developing ways of making sustainable materials from cellulose. And this was nice, again, that I got the best PhD award in 2020. So I did quite a lot of traveling during this time, connected with a lot of folks, and again, had that opportunity to really come to the realization of what it really means to be given that opportunity to be on scholarship. If I look at the funds in terms of for example, my PhD project was funded for way almost 300,000 euros. So this is money that I would definitely not have any chance of raising myself. So, but then getting that level of education was only possible because of the scholarship. So that's why I try to always show this slide, just to not only to like show that I also had to come from somewhere, but also to like reemphasize and perhaps also motivate and inspire you to see what is possible when you go through what you have to do. When you do what you have to do and you're persistent, then you can only imagine what you can become, okay? Then since July 2019, I've been a research scientist at Procter & Gamble here in Germany. Okay, now that that is done, I would want to walk you guys through this content, basically just to show an overview, maybe a holistic view of what I'm going to talk about today. First is about scholarship, like why should you care or why should I care? What are some misconceptions that people have once they hear about international scholarship or global scholarship? What are some of these perceived constraints, and how do you take control to be able to like name it and try to address it and make sure that it doesn't become a stumbling block along your scholarship journey. Then I'm going to talk about what are some basic requirements for scholarships, and how do you get ready to be able to conquer this, to conquer the scholarship journey, and how do you put everything in perspective by setting the right goal, and how do you plan to actualize this goal? And of course, I will share some parting tips. One thing you would notice is that, or even just looking at this content, is that I always focus a lot on the mindset. If there is something I'm doing differently in my mentorship platform, is on the mindset. I do not mind that you don't have a scholarship this year. I know you would have a scholarship as long as you don't quit. I know you would get a scholarship as long as you keep doing things differently. But if your mindset is not right, if you do not win the scholarship in your mind, then it's so difficult for you to see it. It's so difficult for you to come to that realization. So it's so important to first keep the scholarship itself by the side and work on your mind. Your mind needs to win before you even get into scholarship applications. So with that perspective, I just want you to keep that in mind as we go through these slides. So why should you care? There are different types of scholarships. You have like Erasmus Mundus that I was part of. You have the Commonwealth, you have that, you have the Orange scholarships in the Netherlands, you have the MEX in Japan, you have NAWA in Poland, you have a MasterCard across different countries, and you have the Chevening in the UK. And for me, one thing that I quickly identified with scholarship is that it's a reward for academic excellence. It's a reason why anybody would want to study. If you look, if I look at our situation back in my home country, I always ask that question, like, why should any student spend 4 or 5 years trying to get the best grades, trying to, to build a strong foundation, academic foundation, if they cannot see how that is going to make them into that, what you might call that force for good, into that resource that can make a difference in their society? What should motivate them when they can see their elder ones that graduated with first class and the rest struggling to find a way, a means of life, struggling to live? So what is the motivation that would keep students, excellent students, to keep doing what they do when they know that a best graduating student is getting maybe 100 CDs or 10,000 naira, while someone that does a beauty pageant is getting millions and millions of naira? So what is the motivation? What should motivate you to study? And this is where international scholarships come in. It's something you can look forward to. You can know that if you keep doing what you have to do very well, you stand a chance of becoming a millionaire just by graduating very well. And of course, that is one part of it, but doing what you have to do correctly, you can become a millionaire. Not just becoming a millionaire in terms of money, but also being given an opportunity to truly develop your talents, to truly get to that point where you can fully use your potential. So that is what international scholarships are, and that is how I see them. Right. And that's why for me, I always have that conversation about brain gain and brain drain. I don't see people, best students, getting opportunities to study abroad on scholarship as a brain drain, right? Because of course, the question remains, what will you be doing with that, your brain, if you do not have all the right resources and all the right knowledge, the know-how to be able to use your skills to transform it into something that can make a difference in your society? So getting the opportunity to optimize and be able to use up all those your innate potentials is a brain gain. You become a potential, you become a resource that your country can call back. You have now what it takes to make a difference in your society. That is not going to be the same if you do not have that level of background or that level of education. So it is a brain gain. So every society, every country that has hundreds of their students scattered all over the world, learning at the top universities, they have that potential already in the diaspora. And if in the future, at some point, that they're able to come back either directly or indirectly, they already know that these people have gotten this knowledge that would otherwise have not been possible. So it's definitely a brain drain again. And I really want to still use this slide to again, once more, inspire you to see the need of doing what you have to do very well. Okay. So what are some of the misconceptions that we have about scholarships? The first is that sometimes we feel it's not for us, right? You've applied so many times, you just don't get it. Maybe you have also helped someone to make an application. Maybe you are even the person that told your friend about a particular scholarship and they got it. You even have a better result than them. You even have a better grade than them. But what is it? What is not happening? Why is it not happening to you? And at some point, you just feel that it is not for you. Like, this scholarship thing is not for me. Of course, when you start getting frustrated, you even get even more disturbed to even want to make an application. So that's the first misconception you need to be aware of. Another misconception is about, if it has never happened before, it cannot happen after. As an undergraduate, I didn't get any scholarship. I applied for different oil multinational companies funded scholarship for undergraduates in Nigeria. I didn't get any. There was also MTN Foundation scholarship. I didn't get that also. So by the time I was making my international scholarships, I had not gotten any scholarship before. So it's easy for us to look at our past and use it as a yardstick to build into our future. So we feel that if it has not happened in the past, it cannot happen in the future, right? And that misconception easily defeats us. It doesn't give us that, I mean, it stops us from winning in our mind. Remember, I said the first place you win a scholarship is in your mind before anything else, okay? Another one is that we feel we are not ready. You feel that there is still something that I need to know. I don't want to start the application because I don't know how it's going to end. I'd rather not do it now because I don't want to just waste my time. So you just feel you are not ready. But the question here is always, if you are not ready, what should you be doing, right? So if you tell me you are not ready because you do not have a particular requirement, then my next question is, what are you doing to get that requirement? Most times people do not get ready year after year. So they know that they don't have certain requirements, but they do not do anything to get that requirement even for the next year. And so they keep being in the state of not ready even into the foreseeable future. So that's another misconception you need to tackle and address. Another misconception is about feeling that it's just too early. For example, I said I started my applications as a fourth-year undergraduate student for a 5-year program. For some people, they just feel, okay, this is just too early. I'm going to wait. I don't want to go into the scholarship thing now. But then what they fail to realize is that the more you are aware, the more you know what you are into, what you are going to be against, the better you become prepared eventually, right? You might not have everything you need to go through the whole application, but just putting yourself out there gives you an experience, and that experience helps you into the subsequent applications. So these are what I call perceived constraint, because of course you perceive them, but where it becomes a problem, in my opinion, is when it becomes a reason for your excuse, right? So somehow you now have an excuse. Oh, why have you not made the application? I don't think I have everything. Okay, what are you doing about the everything you don't have? That question is never answered. Okay, so we need to identify this perceived constraint. And of course, as the saying goes, that denying the existence of a problem doesn't make it go away. Denying the existence of a challenge doesn't make it disappear. That you do not acknowledge something doesn't make it to just disappear. You need to acknowledge it. You need to call it by its name. You need to identify it. You need to find a way to deal with what you have identified, so that it wouldn't be any excuse again in the future. You would say, okay, I've identified you, I acknowledge you, now I can move you aside. And so the first thing to do is to take control of this perceived constraint. You need to first identify what that constraint is, right? You need to identify the constraint. What is this constraint? I do not have my transcript. Okay, this is the constraint. How do I measure this constraint? Now, measuring is important because you want to understand, is this a constraint that I can deal without? Or is this really a critical constraint that I cannot deal without? For example, imagine that you are making an application that says you need to submit your IELTS, right? And this is a constraint. You don't have the IELTS or you don't have the TOEFL. exam score. So you said, okay, this is a constraint. I have measured the constraint. How do you measure? You find out, right? You want to understand if this constraint is critical or is something that you can do without. So one way is to approach the coordinating body of this scholarship, tell them what you have. For example, a lot of people go in with the English exemption certificate when they study in, say, English-speaking countries like Ghana or Nigeria. And you say, okay, I am so person. I've done all my bachelor studies in English language, written my exams in English. I do not have the IELTS. I want to understand if it will be possible to make my application with an exemption or a kind of an English proficiency certificate from my university, right? So that is how you measure. So you, by the time you do this, you might either get a response that says, no, this is important, you cannot do without it. Or you can get a response that said, fine, we can consider this for this application. But then you know what it is. The next thing to do in taking control is to define what if not situation or what if not scenario. What this means is that you say, okay, now my constraint is my IELTS. What if the IELTS was not a constraint? Will I still be able to make this application? You see, the truth of the matter is that most times when we want to make a decision, when we want to do something, our mind tries to fight against anything that will bring it out of its comfort, right? So if you want to do something, most times your impulse is always why you shouldn't do it. And no matter how small this could be, it could easily grow so big that you now start feeling that this is really not just a mole, but really a mountain before you that you cannot surmount. So when you take away, consider that this was not a constraint. Will I still be able to make the application? That is when you begin to realize that this was actually not why you are not making the application. This perhaps is not the reason. So it's important to always define the what if not scenario. What if the IELTS was not a criteria? Would I still make this application? Then you realize, oh, I wouldn't because I do not have this other document, right? So once you define the what if not, it helps you to kind of map and have a holistic view of what you want to do, and helps you to know which of the fights you want to focus your energy on. Okay. Then the next step is, it's important to find a justification. So what is the justification for this, for the reward? Like, remember, your mind is trying to fight something. It doesn't want you to go through the application. It tells you how much time it's going to take, effort. You're applying with thousands of people. What makes you feel you are going to have a chance? And all those negative impulses that would push you away from even making the application. But then when you say, okay, what is the award? What if I went through this application and actually got the scholarship? What is the what, right? In terms of monetary, in terms of exposure, in terms of your long-term career. Remember, I started by telling you to define the why, right? If you connect it and say that, no, I mean, this is so important to me, I cannot move. This is critical for me to move to every other step in my life. Then it becomes so important that you are able to force yourself into submission, into doing this application, right? So always think about the reward. What is it going to offer you, right? Then the next step is now to remove the constraint. For example, imagine that IELTS again was a constraint. You have written to the coordinator and they said, no, you have to take this exam. And you have looked at the reward and said, okay, for Erasmus Mundus, we are talking of 49,000 euros, right? So this is the amount of money that I would get. This is the number of countries I would go to. This is the kind of techniques and skills and exposure I'm going to get. How much is the IELTS worth? Maybe it's worth 200 cedis, or in Naira about 70, 80,000 Naira. You now say, fine, this is what I need to invest because it's going to help me open up the opportunities to become competitive in this application. And that puts you now into that position to now plan your resources, right? I always say that anybody that wants to do something can do it. It takes time, but no matter what you earn, you can always say no, that you are saving towards something. And it's important because you can connect it to your long-term goal. It's important because you can connect it to what you have to do towards that your long-term goal. So Once you remove the constraint, of course, you have not neglected this constraint, perceived constraint. You have identified it, you have measured it, defined what, if not, justify the reward, and you remove the constraint, okay? Once that is done, we can now start thinking of now navigating through this scholarship journey. I always say that it's important to focus on the process. It's always process over results. If there is anyone that has been sold that idea that results are more important than process, then I can already tell you someone that is setting up themselves to be frustrated. Okay, you don't know what the result is, but that's not the point. The point is the process. Are you doing what you're supposed to do correctly? Are you taking up every opportunity to improve your application to make it more competitive? Are you doing everything within your can to make sure that you are giving in your 110% best? Everything you are doing towards that application is a process. However, the results come out would not change the process, how you have grown from that process, right? So have it in your mind that I'm going through a process. So you wouldn't end up saying, I am frustrated because I've made 20 applications. Maybe your 21 application is what is going to get you a scholarship. But if you are frustrated at 20, all those 20 doesn't matter anymore. In fact, once you get one scholarship, whether you have done 100 applications, it doesn't matter anymore. But remember that you didn't just get one scholarship. You got it from 100 applications. Imagine the amount of learnings you have gotten throughout those 100 applications. So focus always on the process. So when you navigate or you're going through this scholarship journey, just have it in your mind that you are going through a process, okay? So it's important to always find way, right? So considering that you have no idea about international scholarships, you also need to find out where can you find these scholarships. And the easiest place is to go on Google. Just if you go on Google today and just search international scholarships in public relationships globally, you will see a lot of links. It's now your job to go through these links, try to identify some specific scholarship, follow up on those scholarships. You can try to check on LinkedIn to see if there is somebody in your network, even out of your network. If you just search this scholarship on LinkedIn, you would find everybody that has used that scholarship either in any form of their profile. So you can even use these methods to start identifying people that got that scholarship that you want to apply. Of course, you can try to connect to these people. If they are not accepting your connection, you can follow them, because following someone, especially on LinkedIn, still allows you to see what they are doing, to see their profile, to see their post, right? So in this way, you are getting closer to what you are looking for, but you have to do the first job, to do the screening, right, before you get to that point of knowing who you want to follow up. The next one is, once you know where, you need to also define what is the how. How is the application done? For example, Erasmus Mundus scholarship, you do not apply for the scholarship separately. You apply for the scholarship as part of the program's application. But you need to submit before a particular deadline to be considered for the scholarship. In some cases, say, for example, Chevening or Commonwealth, you apply, you get an admission and you apply to the scholarship bodies for specific programs in certain universities. So you need to understand exactly what you want to apply to and how that application works. You need to know of the time, right? Like I said, if you apply to Erasmus Mundus and you want to be considered for the scholarship, you need to submit an early application. So that is important for you to be aware when you have to make your application, when you have to submit, right? Then you need to also understand where this scholarship is taking you to. Again, comes back to the first slide, why? Be clear on where this scholarship is going to take you to, because being clear on it is also how you're going to structure your motivations and SOPs, or statement of purpose, or personal statement. If you do not know where it's taking you to, you are just following because it's a scholarship that is available. It's difficult to be coherent in your thoughts. It's difficult to be convincing. It's difficult to put yourself out as an ID candidate. In all this, remember, the first thing I said here, take home with you, process over results. Process over results. The next thing here is direction over speed. A lot of people feel that because I've applied for 2-3 years, now I have to get it. Nobody gives you that guarantee. I don't know if anybody can ever give you such a guarantee. But what you can remember is that it is your journey. It's direction over speed. It's not how fast you got a scholarship. It's really what you are doing today to be able to go into that position where you become even more competitive. So focus on your own journey. Don't get to that point that you are getting frustrated because someone that you showed everything got a scholarship and you did not get. He or she has their own journey, and you also have your own journey. So focus on your own direction. Make sure that you are going in the right direction rather than, for example, some people want to make 20, 30 applications in a given year. Are you sure you have given all your best in those 20 applications? Or wouldn't it have been better that you apply to 5 programs that you know you have enough time to give them your 110%? Again, direction over speed. So it's not like when you apply to 1,000 applications, then you have a chance of getting one. No, if you apply to 1,000 applications haphazardly, without paying attention to details, you just increase the number of love letters you are going to receive. So make sure that for every application you are making, you are able to give in your 110%. Now, again, like I said, I can spend all day talking about the mindset. How do you get into that state of being in the right frame of mind to go through applications? Because this is what matters most. Every other thing is what you have on top. You can be the best student wherever, but if you do not believe on something that you can do something, you will not. It's just as simple as that. And if you think it's going to come by chance, then you will stop when you even get into such a program because you are not prepared. So make sure that your mindset is first very clear on what you want to do. Okay. So generally, for international scholarships or global scholarships, there are specific types of documents. I mean, you would find this in different types of applications in different formats. For example, the first or one of the first is your transcript of studies. Then your degree certificate, your CV, your letter of motivation, a letter of recommendation, English language proficiency exam, standardized internal, it's actually supposed to be standardized external admission exams like GRE or GMAT. And if you think about the aspect of perceived constraint, if you're an undergraduate, some of those challenges you might have would be perhaps your transcript of studies, your degree certificate, some of these international exams. What I always advise is that as a student, or rather when I was a student, I always try to make sure that I know all my results, okay? I know all the results I got. I made my own student unofficial transcript copy that I could use for my applications up to the point where they have to require the official transcript. In this way, you do not have to wait to get your official transcript to start making applications. The same with your degree certificate. You can always, even as an undergraduate, you can always go to your department and get somehow like statement of reference, for example, or some people call it like status of studies, current status of studies, where they will state clearly that this person is in their final year, they have taken 90% of their courses, and they currently have a CGPA of this. That is usually going to be enough in place of your certificate, right? Pending when you have the official degree certificate before the start of the program. But if you are going to be assessed during the scholarship application, at least I know for Erasmus Mundus, they are not going to, in fact, they actually ask or recommend that you make your application before you graduate, right? Just before, in your final year, before you get your final results. So they will not this will not put you at a disadvantage for sure. Now, let's talk about the CV. Whenever I talk of CV, I always want to use the POD, which is what I call as a point of differentiation. That is what helps you to stand out, right? Remember, your CV is a summary of yourself. But most times, we have one CV we use for everything. Are you applying for a job? You are using that same CV. Maybe you just go to the objective and you change something from the objective, and every other thing is the same. When you're applying for a scholarship called ABC, you're using the same transcript, you're applying for a scholarship called CDD, you are using the same CV. How do you stand out? How does it make you different? I mean, if somebody should just replace your name and their educational qualification, anybody could use your CV. So what is it on your CV that makes you stand out? Remember, you are making an application for a particular scholarship. This scholarship has requirements. It has an objective. There's something it wants to achieve. How do you bring those things into your CV? For example, they've talked about certain skills that they are looking for. And then somewhere, after writing a lot of things, you just put skills, programming skills, C++, Python, R language, then communication skills, comma, how do you call it again? Proficiency in Microsoft applications. That doesn't make a lot of meaning. If I'm interested to assess you based on those skills, you have not told me anything. Focus more on how to show where you have used those skills and put the time, use numbers. 60 hours spent on CC plus language to develop a program or algorithm that helped solve this. Even something you have done as an undergraduate, it could be a class project, it could be an assignment, it could be anything that you have done to actually use that skill. Write it out there in your CV, especially if these are skills that they are looking for in that program. If you talk of communication, where have you used that communication skill? It doesn't mean you write 10 sentences. Even in one line, you could write something that is strong enough for me to know that truly you have this skill. This is where you have used it. This is how much time you have been using it. Try to use percentages. Instead of saying, yes, you graduate with a first class, think of saying, what is the percentage in your class? Are you the top 5%, top 1%, top 10%? Right? It's much stronger than having a first class because, of course, you could be a first class and be less than the 10% in your class or in your school. So always make sure that your CV shows relative to what you have been doing. Use numbers. Spend a lot of time on your course, on your handbook. Most times, at least in my university, we had a handbook for our program. If you go through that handbook, you would see that you had different courses and each of those courses had their curriculum, what they would want to cover. Make sure that you find a way to translate those things that they have covered into hours that you have used if it's important for that application. It simply shows that you cannot have the same two CVs for different applications. If they have different requirements, if they have different expectations, how do you translate their expectation into your personalized? I said personalize their requirements. What are the skills they are looking for? Personalize it. Bring it into yourself, then show it. If they are looking for volunteering skills or they have interest in people that have volunteering experiences. I say, I volunteer in so place. That's not enough. How many hours did you spend in volunteering? What did you get out of it? How did it make a difference? So you cannot use the same two CVs for different applications. So the first thing you need to focus before making an application is if it needs you spending 1 week, understand what the program is about, what the scholarship is about, what are the scholarships focus, what is their interest, what are their objectives, what do they want to achieve, what are they looking for, what are the programs that these universities are offering, how are they different from other universities. So do a good investigation even before you start writing anything, even before you start putting everything into your CV. So that once you put it into your CV, anybody reading your CV would have one thing in mind. This CV is for this program. And it's easy to find out. If you send me a CV and I look at it and I have an idea on what you're applying for, then I would be able to say, okay, no, this is a generic CV. And of course, the selection committee knows their program better than you. So if they look at your CV and your CV could have all the great works you have done, but it just doesn't fit into what they are looking for. You are a great candidate, but you do not fit into their program. Okay? I could talk about CV for one day. The next thing is about letter of recommendation. Of course, for those that have graduated, this might be a bit late, but you can still do something about it. Make sure you have a good relationship with your professors. Professor doesn't mean, a professor could be someone teaching you. It doesn't necessarily mean professor like we know it. Just make sure you have a good relationship with your academic, let's say, resource or teachers, because you need a good recommendation. You don't need a recommendation from your VC, vice chancellor, to be strong enough because his stamp is on it. If it's generic, you just don't get a better chance, right? And recommendations letters are very strong. In fact, in the NAWA scholarship, recommendation is as much as 40%. 40% of your application is your recommendation. So for somebody to write a recommendation for you, the person should be able to do a very good job to capture those skills that the program is looking for and show how you have demonstrated those skills. And you see, it's a lot of work. My recommendation is always, if you are close to a professor, you can always draft this yourself. Yes, you can draft your recommendation because you know what your application is supposed to cover. You do a good job of background, you draft it, and you give it to them to review. And if they are fine with what you have written, they can make some additions and they can sign it. The other alternative is when you want to ask someone for recommendation, please give them a background of what you're doing. Don't just write your professor that, oh, I'm applying for Chivini Scholarship. I will need a recommendation. What is Chivini Scholarship? What is it looking for? What is the program you're applying for? What skills are they looking for? You know, give the person those information, because the alternative is that the person goes and read about it. If I would give a recommendation to someone, I usually have to go and read what that program is about to know how best to align what I'm writing into that application or into that to capture those things that are interested or needed for that application. But this is not easy. So make sure you provide the person all the help they need to give you a good recommendation. And one way is always to propose to write it yourself, and they can do it. So like I said, your recommendation validates you. It justifies, or it's another person saying what you have said of yourself. Right? So it should validate your skills, experience, and capabilities. This is not something that would be like, to whom in my concern, I know this student, this scholarship would be a great fit for this person. That doesn't help you, right? So don't focus so much on trying to get a professor to give you a recommendation. It could even be someone that doesn't have a PhD, but the person has supervised you. The person can say a lot about your potential, your skills, your capabilities. That person is a good fit to give you a good recommendation. Letter of motivation is another important document that you need, or rather another important requirement. In fact, if you look at recommendation, your CV and your motivation, these three always come together to talk about who you are as a person. When you write a letter of motivation, a statement of purpose, a personal statement, you need to think of the requirement. In fact, don't start any application when you don't know what the requirements are. Know what they are looking for. Know what they have to offer. Know what they want to do with the people that they are going to hire. So you know how to align yourself as that IT candidate. So the requirements needs to be clear. Then you need to be clear on your structure. What do you want to say? What do you want to communicate? What do you want this person to live with, right? And it's important to keep in mind at least what I call the thought process. This is how I would write a motivation or a statement of purpose. This is how I would frame it in my mind. So the first thing is that you are in the present, okay? There are three phases, or rather there are three stages of life, in my opinion, or three spheres of life at any point. There is your present, which is here. There is your past. I mean, you know your present, you knew your past. So you have your present, you have your past, and you have your future, the future you don't know. Okay, now the way I see motivation or all these personal statement letters is that you start from your present. What are you doing now? But before even starting from your present, think about what this future is. What is that future? Before you think of that future, think of what that program is. What is the requirement of this program? What are they looking for? Who do they want to make into the future? What do they want to achieve? Their objectives is what they want to deliver as an end goal. You go into that program and become the future. You have to be looking for what that program is offering. So for example, the program is trying to develop, to build resource for people that will become experts in biorefinery, or your interest is in aeronautics engineering, or then you want to spend all the time telling them how great you have, you want to be an aeronautic engineer. You are not in the future they want to make. No matter how good you are not a good fit. That might be your dream, perhaps, but if you want to make an application and stand a chance, you have to become the application. You have to become the person they are looking for. That's how it is. You have to become that future that they want to make. Then, in retrospect, you move into your present and find examples where you can connect into that future. Very important, coherency. You cannot talk about a future and in your present is completely out of connection with what you're talking about in your future. The future is the program, right? This program has something to help you achieve your future. That's why one of the most common questions you always get in interview for scholarship is, how will this program help you achieve your long-term goal? This program has to be a gap. It has to be this gap between your present and your future. It has to be able to help you become that your future. So you need to frame that your future that would show that this future needs this goal. This future needs this program to help me get into that future. And then you move to your past. Your past examples should be those that connect to you into that future. Don't go and, of course, you have 1,000 experiences in your past. It doesn't help you to focus on examples that are not related to that goal you have framed in the future. So it's one story. This is read as one story. Your letter of motivation or statement of purpose or personal statement is one story. You cannot start and you have different examples in your life. Pick those examples that connect to that particular application you want to make. So you start from your future. The future is what the program is offering, right? What the program would want to achieve as their end goal. That is that future. You need to make it that your future. You need to personalize it, bring it into your own personal context and make it that future. Then you need to come into your present and connect with what you are doing today that is supposed to help you into that future. Then you need to go into your past and find those examples that are specific, that helps to connect and show anybody that I didn't just start thinking about this today. I've thought about it 5 years ago. This is what I've been doing 5 years ago to show you that what I'm doing today and what I want to do in the future, they all connect. But this is you picking certain examples from your life to make that coherent story. Okay? Then the program itself comes in as a gap. So even somebody reading at your SOP will say, I see why you need to do this program. You need to get into that position where you become the person they are looking for because you have what they are looking for and they have what you're looking for. That mutual combination is what it calls or what makes out an ID candidate. Okay? So the motivation letter should share your passion, enthusiasm, benefits of being part of this program. How does the program help you to achieve your long-term goals? Now that we have looked at the different criteria, let's now just quickly point out how do you get ready, right? Now we have talked about different requirements. Now, what is the complete overview of what you can focus on? You need to plan, right? Remember, a scholarship is as good as a job. It takes quite an effort. I don't subscribe to the ideology of instant getting scholarship. I don't know who even promised anybody that. So make sure you have a plan in place. A plan in place could be as well as I'm going to be saving 500 naira every week, every month because I want to write my IELTS in December or November because by November I will be able to use it for my application in January. No, have a plan in place and work towards that plan. Of course, you know the scholarships you want to apply to because the scholarship gives you their requirements and you use those requirements to start checking yourself. What do I have? What do I need to check? Or what do I need to get? When can I get it? Maybe you need certain specific skills that are relevant for the applications you want to make. Where do you get these skills from? Do you need to do some open online courses to build up these skills? Do you need to attend webinars? Do you need to do some trainings? You know, every activity that you are taking or putting in place to get ready for that actual application is what I call planning, right? You need to identify what kind of help do you need. For example, you have to follow people on LinkedIn, follow their posts, their content, try to get into different forms of groups. Get into groups of people that are thinking in your direction so that you can keep getting informations on what to do. But don't just be a carry of a crowd follower. Don't just jump into any opportunity you see. Just get first your plan, and then when you see opportunities that are aligned to that plan you are setting for yourself, you can follow it rather than just being carried away by the wind. Okay. Then you need to define what is your minimum requirements to proceed. I always recommend that it's better to start your application early enough so that you get familiar with application process, even if you will not end up submitting it. But at least you now know how many pages are in this application, what are the type of questions they were asking. You know, you can follow up with somebody to ask that specific question. Oh, well, when I get this kind of question, how do I tackle it? So when you know the applications you want to make, it's easier to ask specific questions rather than coming to me and say, how do I apply for a scholarship? But it's different if you come to me and say, I'm applying for this scholarship. They said I should write a statement of purpose. What should it look like? You know, you can ask somebody a bit more specific questions. So when you are setting your goal, be very smart, right? So smart basically means you need to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. You cannot have a goal that has no time. What are you going to do when? It's easy then for you to track. Okay, I'm supposed to write my IATS by November, means I should start preparing for it by June, July. I would have to spend this number of hours every day to be preparing for this exam. You need to be specific about what you really want to do. Remember, when you have a plan, right, then when you have a goal, your particular goal, then you can put the plan in place to achieve that goal. So, but your goal needs to be smart. Like you cannot just have a very diverse goal that you are not able to plan because the goal is not realistic, it's not specific, it's just all over the place. So take each goal, put up a plan towards it. Oh, I want to apply to Chevening. That is your goal. What plan do you need to put in place? I want to apply to Chevening in 2021. That's the goal that you want to achieve. What is the plan in place? I've checked, I need IATS. I want to write my IATS on this time. This is how I'm going to do it. I don't have the money now. This is how I'm going to be saving towards it. I'm not concerned when people do not get a scholarship over time. I'm more concerned when they do not have any plan in place towards getting a scholarship. Those are two different things, and still comes down to that focus on process over results. Okay. So of course you have to plan how to achieve that your goal. Make sure you prioritize. For example, as an undergraduate, you still have to graduate first before anything else. So don't risk your exams because you want to make an application. You need to strategize and don't be ignorant of what you should know. Familiarize, get informed, follow people that are already doing what you want to do in the future, and that can help you. That could still be a form of coaching or mentoring. So you don't really need to have somebody that you can say, okay, this is my mentor, for you to get the information that you need from that person to advance yourself. Okay, focus on less. Okay, make sure that applications you are making are very good enough. So less is more. Of course, as a parting tip, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. You can only choose your own rights. Okay. The question is not the outcome, like I said, but the process that led to the outcome. So you need to trust the process. And you cannot shy away from failure. Besides, what is failure? It's an ingredient of success. That you get rejected. It's your applications that got rejected, not you. But make sure that you have learned from that process. Ask for feedbacks. You are not accepted to a program, write to them, thank them for the application. Then request that they share a feedback. How can you improve your application in the next opening, right? So make sure you ask for these feedbacks, so that sometimes they can even give you a feedback that will completely rule you out and make you not to even find the need to apply the next year, because they are looking for something you don't have and there is no way you can have it. So you can just easily rule out that application and focus that energy on those that you have a chance to succeed. So international scholarship, what should keep you going? Hope, right? So important. If you have a reason why, you can almost bear anyhow. So that's why I started this presentation with a why. It's never too late to start early. So you can start now, but focus your mind that I'm going through a process, because this process is important to build me as a person even before getting a scholarship. Or let me get a scholarship, but I want to grow as a person in getting that scholarship, okay? Rather than going through it and saying, I just want to get a scholarship, and each time you don't get that scholarship, you get more frustrated and become depressed. So approach it in that way, and it helps a lot. Thank you all. I spoke much longer than I planned. As we'll say in Igbo, emailer, I'm very happy to take your questions. As you know, till we all win, we are always work in progress.
So Cyril, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Doctor. It was a wonderful presentation. And I'm sure everybody enjoyed it so very much, because I did, even though I'm not going to be applying for any scholarships. But I think some of the points are very good for even as a lecturer or researcher. If you're applying for proposals, you need to do all these things. You need to go through the same processes. And my favorite part of your whole presentation was that a scholarship is as good as a job. I keep on telling people that it's a full-time thing if you want to apply for a scholarship. It's not something you just pick up and do a little bit and then, oh yeah, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, it's okay. No, you need to work on it every single day. I'm going to unmute the participants so that they can ask questions, or you can also send your questions to the chat there. So you can now unmute yourself if you are listening to us and ask your question. You can also send a question to the chat by the side, and then you can ask Doctor. So let's have our questions then, please. Thank you.
I think you can
Ask them to, anybody that wants to ask a question should raise their hand. Then you can unmute the person. Otherwise, it will be chaos. Looks like everybody understood me perfectly. I see one hand.
Yeah, it looks like. Okay. Okay, yes, I've unmuted you so you can ask your question.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Casey, and for the organizer. My question is, because I've been making a couple of applications for, not too many though, just 2 this year for PhD, but I've really faced a challenge of this recommendation letter. Like, I was not even able to complete a particular application that was in March, because one of my lecturers, who happened to be someone I sent the online recommendation letter to fill, he did not have the time to fill it out before the deadline. So, but please, what I want to really know is how can we, though I've not gotten to any interview phase, how can we respond to interview question, the interview question that you...
Did we lose you?
Okay. So how can we respond?
I think the internet is fluctuating, yes. Did you get a question to answer?
No.
I think he wanted to talk about the interview, but I didn't get what he was trying to say.
If you can come back online, then ask it that, can we go through?
Yeah, I think we can go through. Yeah, I think we can go through, and if you can come back and complete it, because the question is not completed.
All right. So the Farmer Hub from Nigeria is asking, good evening, AfroScience. Can a GPA of 3.54/5 skill get into graduate school?
I would say yes, absolutely. So the focus, and of course, I have seen people and also coached people that got into a scholarship with such a CGPA. The focus is really what scholarship. If this person wants to focus, say, on the US or in the US, I would advise strongly that you take a GRE. Okay, don't just take a GRE because you want to fulfill a requirement. Prepare, get a high score from a GRE. So important. It would help differentiate you. It would help give you that support that you need. Now, for somebody that, even for Erasmus Mundus, I know people that got Erasmus Mundus with such a CGPA, but one thing that is important, or one thing that has helped them, is how much other growth or other areas of their skills that they have improved. So either they are publishing more, either they're attending different conferences, or doing more of volunteering for those that are important, for scholarships that are focusing or interested in volunteering or leadership, you know, like you need to do other things other than just having your CGP as the only thing that you have on your CV. So you need to have something more that you can bring to the table.
Okay, great. There's a question that is related to that one. God's Power Ubit. His question is that for graduate study in the US, should we still do a standardized test for even schools that are waiving it?
I think it also depends, right? So if a school is waiving a test, it means they will not consider it. They will not consider it if it becomes something that they have to consider. Like, let me rephrase. They will not consider it as a criteria for you to apply. Remember, if a school says you need a standardized exam or a standardized score, your application will not be accepted without that score, right? So if they say we are waiving this, it doesn't mean we would admit you or would give you student GR or studentship. It simply means you can submit your application. Now, think about it. Who are the other people that have submitted that application? You will be ranked, right, based on other criteria. Now, if it comes to differentiating, what should I have from you that would help me to decide if I should give you or I give somebody else? If all of you have submitted the same thing and then this person has a GRE score. So it is not considered to apply, but it could actually play as a differentiating factor in selection. Okay. So if you can afford it, I strongly advise, in fact, even when you talk of waiving, when you focus only on schools that have waived, you also lose a lot of options, right? Because you are forced into a corner. And remember one thing, more people would be in that area like you, because a lot of people would not also write the exam and they would only want to apply to these schools that are not given, that are waiving this standardized exam. So you even get into a more stiff competition, right? So if you can write these exams, don't shy away from it, write it and use it as your own point of differentiation.
Okay, thank you for that one. I think there's a question connected to the earlier one from Chinelo. So he's actually agreeing with you. Second time I'm being convinced that applying for a scholarship is a full-time job. And then his question is graduating with second class upper a limitation?
I think we answered that already before. Remember, I mean, one thing you should keep in mind is I strongly advise you not to chase where you don't have a chance just to feel good. So what am I trying to say? If you have a 2-1, there are some scholarships that clearly specify their limit below 4.0 on a 5, right? If that is their criteria, please, if you want to make such an application and you want to really make that application, contact the coordinating body with your transcript. Tell them what results you have. Let them tell you to go ahead and apply. Because if they have already ruled you out based on your CGPA, that is not the only scholarship that exists. That's the point I'm trying to make. Like, don't force yourself on a scholarship that has already clearly eliminated you based on a particular criteria, right? You can ask them, either, like I said, for some standardized exams, you can always ask for a waiver. You can be given a waiver, right? And that could help. You could still get a scholarship without writing these exams. But if they have told you that no, based on this particular criteria, we cannot waive it, and you know you are not able to afford it, means you are not going to write these exams, use that energy, focus on the scholarships that are not asking for you that as a criteria. It could be that this particular program is the best that you have seen in your life, but you are just not allowed, like you don't have a chance there. So if you go through the application and then just hope that somehow magically they would forget about their criteria that they set, that's not happening, right? So use that energy and focus on where you have a chance. That's why it's important to always check, please always check eligibility for every application you make. Check your eligibility. If you are not clear on your eligibility, contact the coordinator, write them what you have. Some might say we need somebody with basic background in biological sciences, but maybe you did physical sciences, right? And you want to show to them that, oh, I also did some things on biological sciences on these courses. I have this number of hours
is this sufficient enough for me to be considered to make this application? Please always get that go ahead before you apply to this kind of programs. Right? That's why I also talked of less is more. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Another question from Godspeed was when drafting an SOP, statement of, I think that's a personal statement or motivation. One is trying to leave an area of research, maybe in a master's degree, for another in a PhD. What should we focus on when talking about the research interest and how its relationship and its relationship to what you want to go for? So I think he's moving from one field to the other and he's trying to draft a motivation letter or statement of interest.
Yeah, I always say that you need to find what you want to say. No, let me rephrase. So the person that is going to give you this PhD offer, you are the professor, right, that you are writing to, needs to find that you have the right skills and background and interest in that field that you're applying for. You could have a change of field for it for a good reason, right? It could be that something changed and then you found a new interest. But remember that where you are coming from also has something to offer to you. So don't just sound like someone that said, I started with A, I lost interest. Why should I not be convinced that you would also lose interest in the new one that you're applying to me? Perhaps the person that gave you the previous one, you also sounded the same, right? So you don't want to come into with that new field as I lost my way, now I found my way. No, you need to come in as someone that is charting a pathway and somehow needed to go through this other path to find this one. You need to find that connection from what you did to what you want to do. It might be weak. We always talk of weak links, but there is a link. You know, it could be that you say, okay, your focus on this first was to build certain skills that you didn't have. And those skills are necessary or helpful for your PhD, right? So it wasn't more of the field, but the skills. So it changes the conversation. But if you come and sound like I didn't have interest or you were asked in an interview, but you started with inorganic chemistry, how did you now find yourself in organic chemistry? Or you started with this particular field, why are you not applying to this other field? And you start sounding like someone that was confused in the past and has now found clarity. You just also sound like someone that is not reliable, right? So make sure that every experience you have that you want to put into your motivation because it's helpful, and it's not every experience you put on your motivation, by the way. If this your former program doesn't bring something of true value that you think is necessary for the new one, you don't need to put it there. You don't need to, you can put it, but not like your focus. It wouldn't be your focus. Your focus should be on those areas that are helping you in the new application, okay?
All right, thank you for that. Kin says, thank you, doctor, for the presentation. Between the GMAT and the GRE, which external exam has more weight?
It depends. I think GMAT is mostly for people in like management or fields like this. GRE, it's more for people in STEM. So again, you don't just write the one you feel like writing, please. When you know the scholarships or the programs you want to apply for, so programs could as well be graduate schools in the US. Please check what is their requirement. What do they ask? It's the same question someone will ask about IELTS or TOEFL. Please check the requirements. You know, you do a mapping and you come out with like 10 schools that you want to apply to. Then check these 10 schools. What are their requirements? Okay, 5, 6, 7 of them need GRE and IELTS. 3 of them need TOEFL. I will write the IELTS because it gives me more opportunities to use. So before you decide what to write, make sure you are not writing it for fun. You are writing it because it's helping you get ready for the applications you want to make.
Great. Raymond says, nice lecture, doctor. As an undergraduate, aside having good grades, please outline the other important things a person can do to boost their chances of getting a scholarship. What are the things I should do beforehand to improve my chances?
Yeah, I would say that you started early, which is very good. Please work on the relationship with your professors. Very important. A lot of people have always asked me, how do you work on your relationship? Remember, relationship doesn't mean you are a pleaser, you know, like someone that bends over for anything to happen. No, that's not how you work on a relationship. You work on a relationship by being someone that can be noticed in a good way. You know, for example, you there is somebody you identify as. It's not everybody you also want to get a recommendation from, right? You know, some people just naturally are not people that would want you to grow, so they are not going to give you such an opportunity or help to grow. So you could also identify somebody, right, that has that same ability, willingness to help others as a lecturer. Then you approach this person early enough. Approaching the person could be as well, like, you know, getting familiar with the person, not in terms of, for example, your results, right? You have good grades in these exams, so it's easy for lecturers to remember their best students, right? You try to go close to the person. For example, you come with questions, or maybe you find out something in that area, or you read, maybe if he's a PhD, you go around his thesis and you bring a conversation. You bring things that he can talk to. He needs to remember you as a person, you know. Then gradually you start bringing up the conversation about how you're interested to go for graduate studies, what could be his recommendation, what should you look at, you know. You gradually you bring this person in as your mentor, right? Even without them noticing. But it's all about how you align yourself. If you approach a lecturer tomorrow and says, that I read this part of your paper, it was so interesting, I didn't understand these areas, you know, those conversations that would make the person know, first of all, you are doing good in their exams, and you are someone that is interested to go in the particular field. It might not be their field, but you just want that in the future, even before leaving, that you have a good relationship with them. And when it comes to recommendation, you can always come back to them, right? That is very important. So work on your relationship with at least 2 to 3 people that you can always come back to. Another important point is think of opportunities to volunteer as an undergraduate. Volunteering could be organizing tutorials for people in the younger classes, right? All those things that you can gain hours of volunteering experience as an undergraduate would also help you. And also identify where you can get certain practical skills. Not necessarily, you could have, for example, summer schools, some people like programming, for example. There are people that offer this kind of training, not for a lot of money, even in the university setting. You know, those soft skills that you can gain now and also be on LinkedIn, okay? Very important. So start shadowing people, start following people that you want to do what they're already doing today. Shadow them early enough, follow them or create a connection, interact, engage on their post. It's easy for me to recognize people that engage on my posts, no matter how many people always do, because I know there are some people that always engage on my posts. And once they come to me, I can already know that I'm familiar with this name, right? So find a way to be in the life of the people that you want to get their help in the future, okay?
Yeah, great advice there. Okay, so God's power still comes up with another question. What is the best way to start an SOP? Statement of purpose.
You need to start from the requirement. So you need to know, you start an SOP by being very clear. When I say very clear, like you can sleep. If you sleep and I wake you at midnight and ask you, what is this program about? What are they looking for? What are the objectives? What are the requirements? What schools are involved? What are these schools offering? It's not cramming. I'm not saying cram it. I'm saying understand it. You need to get this information, personalize it. Before you start, don't just start typing. You might spend the first few days, that's why you saw what I showed. I didn't show you a template. I don't think there's a template for SOP, right? I don't think it makes sense. What makes sense is the content and how it is presented. You might have the best story. I've seen people with very good grades, but the way they write is not because they can't write properly, but it's just so disjointed that I get even more confused the more I read. Nobody will read that for you. Nobody is going to stress their head to understand what they are trying to communicate. Then make sure you send it to your peers, even people that are not in your field. Even to a year one, someone in the first year can read your SOP and then ask the person, did you understand what I wrote? Did it make sense to you? It needs to be simple. It needs to be very simple. Remember, most of these, for example, say you're applying to schools in Europe, many of these countries are not English-speaking countries, right? So the professors are not native speakers. And then you start putting up a lot of grammar, trying to use very complex adjectives. You are not doing yourself any good. They would not understand it. And so because they did not understand it, it wouldn't make any meaning to them, right? So focus first on understanding the requirements. Requirements is so important, because once you understand the requirement, remember, what do you want to achieve with an SOP? You want to show that you have what they are looking for and they have what you are looking for. If you can do this, then you are fine. You want to show that what they are giving to you is going to help you into your future. So having all of those things into perspective, and also making sure that you do not exceed the word limit. Some people feel that they have so much to write. No, the person that says write under 500 words knows exactly that 500 words is enough. If they ask you a question that in 200 words, they know that 200 words is enough to get what they're looking for. So don't try to make it 205, because there is just one word that if you remove, all your SOP will not make meaning. Remember, it's very easy to screen out such an application, right? Once it's put, even just opening in a Word document will tell me how many words they are, and it is above the limit. I wouldn't even read it. So, I mean, make sure you follow requirements to the last dot. If they say 200 words, stay at 195. In case something happened and you forgot, you didn't count well. So don't put yourself at that limit, that all the effort you have made in your application is cancelled simply because you didn't keep to instructions.
That's a great one. Kingsford is saying, thanks so much for such an insightful and comprehensive presentation, Dr. Kelechuku. Also, Dr. Cyril, thanks for such a solid organization. Kingsford, we thank you for joining. Okay, so Nuagbege, I think he's the one who didn't complete his question. So his question is, please, I was asking if you can please give an insight on how to answer the PhD interview question. How will this program help you in future? That was the question.
Yes.
How will this program help you in future?
Mm-hmm. And I think it also comes down to what I was talking about in your, how do you structure your SOP? In fact, that structure that I showed is the same structure that I use when I do prep interviews with my mentees. When they have an interview for scholarship, PhDs, I just put, this is this framework that I always share. You have three phases, three stages, however you want to call it. You have your present, you have your past, you have your future, right? For every application that you're making, for every program you're applying, you are in your present. You are thinking of a future. Now, that future should connect to what that program is offering. So means you need to become what the program is looking for. You always need to, how do you call it? Flexibility, blend into what the program is looking for. So if that program, I give you an example. Somebody wanted to write an SOP for a PhD that was supposed to work on, it's actually the synthesis of a particular material, right? Some silicon, blah, blah, blah material that they need, inorganic materials for semiconductors, okay? For solar cells. Now, he wrote very nice things at the beginning and sent me to review. I read the first paragraph. I said, I don't know what you want to talk about. You have so many terms here, but what is it for? He said, the material is supposed to, I said, how do I know that you need this material? Oh, the material would help to improve efficiency. Why? Why is the efficiency important to you? There's something you are not getting. He said, it's used for electricity. I said, yes. How is electricity important to you? How is sustainability important to you? Renewable energy. Where are you from? Do you have stable power? How do you connect this to what? You need to show, move to a history of how this material is important. I mean, when you want to do a PhD, you need to go beyond just wanting to have a PhD to something you are passionate about. What if you manage to synthesize this material? What difference would it make in your life, in your community, right? So that is where people can assess passion. Professors would assess passion based on how that program is connected to you. If it's a program that they wrote the proposal, they know what that material would do. They know their proposal, right? The question is, you as a candidate, why is it important to you? Like, why would you want to spend 3-4 years synthesizing this material? Once you are able to connect something, not because you can write a nice story how your family was did, no, but something you can correlate personally, and you can convince anyone that I'm not just doing this because I want to get a PhD. I'm doing this because this is so important. This is where I'm from. These are the statistics. This is why this is important. So you need to come to that point where your response connects with you as a person. Why do you want to do? What is the passion for doing this PhD, other than just wanting to answer a doctor? Okay.
Great. Charles has a question. Thanks for this wonderful opportunity. I wish to submit an application for the Intermaths EMJMD with a master's in mathematics. What expert advice will you give?
I would say that check the requirements of this particular program. Check what you have. What is it that you don't have? Go on LinkedIn, filter out people that are in Intermaths. There are actually people that are in Intermaths. There are Nigerians in Intermaths. There are perhaps Ghanaians also. Check out these people, see what they are doing now. What did they do before? What are their profile? Connect with them, see those you can reach out with, build a network around that Intermaths that you are interested in. The expert advice I can give is the same thing that we have said now. I mean, you pick this information and you personalize it for the particular applications you want to make. It doesn't mean for Intermaths there is a special advice for Intermaths, then there's a special advice for plant health, there's a special advice. These are names of Erasmus Mundus programs. No, there are no special advice for each of them. There is just the advice. And from this day advice, you pick it up and you look into your own scenario, into your own personal case, and you apply it there, right?
Great. So Elom Obote said, hi, Doctor, thanks for the presentation. That was great. It seems to me that for most PhD applications or scholarships, contacting a supervisor in advance is a necessity. I tried a couple of times, but there was no response. How do I get them to respond to my emails?
That's a good one. But I think it depends. Again, not all PhDs require you to contact a supervisor before. So of course, on one hand, this could either be because you're contacting as a cold email. So cold email is an unsolicited email where you just contact a professor to seek for a position without necessarily knowing if the person has a funding. My first advice is always, please, before you contact somebody, do a bit of background check on this professor to see if there is any form of other avenues you can connect with them. For example, LinkedIn. I always come back to LinkedIn, or Twitter for those that are active on Twitter. On LinkedIn, for example, you could easily ask, do you have funding in your lab for this? I'm interested in this particular field. So try to make sure that as much as possible, you contact those that have some fundings you can trace to. That's one. Of course, there's also the possibility to just send cold email. But before sending a cold email, please make sure that you come as someone that has something to offer. Don't just write to somebody and say, I'm interested in your field of work. My name is this. Do you have a position? No. It's different from coming as, I read this paper on this. This is what I think about it. This is where I see that it could be reapplied in my scenario. I think it will make, like I see a possibility of how this could be done. I've done something like this in the past. It would be nice to connect with you and we can, talk about this more, something like this. So come in as someone that brings in value. If you are just sending a cold email, or come in as someone that is commenting and providing a perspective on a particular program, a particular publication that this person did. See other ways where they exist that you can follow them, so that at least they start getting, for example, those that are on Twitter might not be so active, but that also means that they easily know people that follow them, right? Or on LinkedIn. So they don't spend a lot of time here. So LinkedIn could be a place where they are not getting so many messages and your message will always pop up because that's the message they get, right? Versus their email that is going to be usually crowded as an official email. So just each professor would have their own different style. Is for you to try to do some background check and see how best you can align yourself.
Yeah, even let me add a bit to that. So I noticed that when people are applying to China, for instance, they try sending emails and don't get replies and they give up. But in my personal experience, you have to sometimes call them, because when you call the person, then you have to pick. But because a lot of them don't speak English, if you send a cold email, the moment they see the English, they'll just put it aside. They won't even bother to open it. Yes. So with my experience, it was better to just call them. If the person can speak English, they will reply immediately. And it's also very important, like you said, to show them what you can do, because that's what I did when I was applying for my PhD. So I read the professor's papers and I showed him how I can help his group and add value. And then he said, oh, okay. He said, even if you don't get the scholarship we're applying for, I'll take money out of my own funds and pay you. Yeah, so
exactly.
That's a very
exactly. I mean, I like that point. Just because at the end of the day, scholarship is a job, right? You would have to spend. So don't get to that point where you just want only things that are free for you to be part of it. Remember the constraints that I discussed. Check the value. I had a situation where a mentee approached me. He needed to apply. No, he needed to pay a fee of equivalence of around 40,000 naira for a particular application in China. It was also in China. And he was asking me, like, does this make sense? And I asked him one question: what is the worth of this scholarship? The worth of the scholarship was like 15 million naira. And you have to pay 40,000. I now asked him another question: what are your chances of getting this? He said, I mean, this is now like they are now in the second stage of the selection. So he has passed the first stage, they are now in the second stage. And there are not too many people left. I said, so you could risk this 40,000, right? Because I mean, even if you do not get it, you wouldn't feel regret that if you had just given this 40,000. And he said, okay, he's going to risk it. I said, yes, because I mean, you risk it doesn't mean you lost it. You put it into a process that you know you believed you are doing your own part of the deal. You know, everything you can do from your own part, please do it. Nobody is going to pay that 40,000 for you. The professor will not waive it and then put you into consideration because they feel you do not have that money. If they need it because it's important as that criteria, they are not going to waive it. So he did that and he got the money, he got the funding. So when you think of the value of what you want to get, then it's easy for you to build up that confidence on what you want to spend. I think we take one or two more questions.
Yes, so I'm going to ask the last two questions, and I think somebody raised this, and we'll just take him and we go. So the one who asked the question on the 3.54/5 CGPA has a question. So the person has 5 publications and several MOOCs, like online courses, and a lot of volunteer experience. And she's also currently preparing for standardized tests. Is there still hope? I think there is, but yeah.
Yeah, of course. As long as you are doing everything you need to do within your own power, right? And making sure that your CV is previewed by someone else than yourself. Your motivation is reviewed by someone else than yourself. You know, all the things that you need to do from your own part, you do them very well. That you are not applying to programs that will not consider you because they have a criteria on CGPA. Of course, like I said from the beginning, as long as you have a why on the why behind making such an application, you would keep doing it till you get it. Will you get it? Yes, as long as you do not quit. It's always the criteria, right, for getting a scholarship.
Okay, so Addison says most universities require application fees, but in the case where you want to apply to more universities without enough funding to cater for application fees, how do you go about it? So after this, we just take the last person and then we go.
Yeah, I think Anderson is just similar to what we said now. Scholarships applications are a lot. I give another example. A mentee of mine, he wrote me that there's an application he wanted to make. He needed to pay $70. I asked him, okay, $70. What are your chances of succeeding? He said, oh, he has paid already 2 different applications. One was 80, another one was 70. I said, so you have already spent $150? He said, yes. I said, are those applications out? He said, no. I said, why do you want to spend $70 you don't have? Do you have GRE? He said, no. Why don't you take this money and write GRE so that you open up your opportunities to different places you can apply? I think it always comes down to you prioritizing what you want to do, right? For example, in that planning phase, you know your budget, you know what you can get in terms of your financial strength. You can already factor that I want to spend, this is not your factor, you know that this is the maximum amount you can spend on application fees. okay, is $100. That is what you have. I mean, there is no fault of yours, but this is what you can spend. Then you want to make sure that you want to spend this money. Some schools collect $30. Okay, some schools don't collect, but some schools collect $30. You want to now ask yourself, before I pay to a school that is asking for $70, what are my chances of succeeding? Like, I have looked at their requirements. Is this, for example, imagine that you look at the requirements, they need IELTS, but you don't have IELTS, you just still want to apply. I would not put my money on that, because they are looking for something I don't have. Even if I ask them for a waiver, I'm not going to be on their top candidate that they want to select, because there's something that they're looking for that I don't have. So you want to spend your money judiciously only on those applications that you have turned them front and back and center. In fact, when you are paying, you want to make sure that you do the applications very well. You don't want a scenario where you paid $70 and you do not do a good job on your CV or on your SOP. And though you have paid $70, but you are not selected simply because you do not make yourself very competitive. So if you are putting any money on an application, make sure you do everything within your possibility to do the best on that application. Then when you have exhausted your money for applications, remember, you have $100. You have looked at 3 schools that you can spend the money on. You know that you did your best, like you gave all your best to these 3 schools. You made sure that these are the 3 schools that are looking for what you have what they are looking for. These are the schools where you have a chance of succeeding because you don't have any criteria that you are missing. When you do those things, you know you have done your part. Then you can now focus the remaining energy you have on schools that don't require application or that have application waiver. You still do your best, but you know that you don't have any money to apply for more schools that don't have application waiver. So you wouldn't feel like if you had more money, if you had more money, let me tell you what could probably happen. You would apply to 20 schools because you have so much money and you don't do any good thing in all those 20 schools because there are so many, right? You just apply because you had money to pay for 20 applications, but you are not doing the best on those 20, okay? So not having money could also be a good thing in forcing you to make sure that you do the best you can on the little ones that you have.
All right. Knowledge, if you can ask the last question. Your hands are
all right, Doc. Thank you. Thank you very much. My question is actually directed towards you. As someone who has studied in China before, I wanted to find out. I'm aware that the Chinese government scholarship, some are applied through the universities.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, in the case where you apply through the university and you are offered admission by the university,
yeah,
what are your chances of getting the scholarship after that?
Oh, your chances are quite high. The Chinese, the CSC, the China Scholarship Council, are usually, they go through the universities. So that's not a problem at all. Each university is, they kind of give them some scholarships for the year. So they need people to fill in because then they will get money from the government. It's the official way of the government funding research on campus. So the moment you apply to the China Scholarship Secretariat, you definitely get the opportunity. So that's not a problem at all. I hope that answers your question. Okay. I think we can wrap up now. Thank you, Dr. Kelechukwu. We are so grateful. It's been such a great presentation. And
Thank you.
yes, I'm so I've gotten so much, like I said earlier, and I think all our participants have gotten a lot from this lecture. And the next thing is I hope all of you will get onto our social media. Follow Dr. Kelechukwu on LinkedIn. He's very active there. He's active on Twitter, so you can follow him on all those channels. You can also follow AfroScience on LinkedIn, AfroScience Network on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on Twitter. We'll be posting the videos by tomorrow. So if you miss something that you want to get back to, you can definitely watch the video on YouTube and get it. And then you can also share it with your friends who missed the show. But I think because of the time problem, some people got on earlier. Because so we'll post the video on YouTube so that everybody can have the opportunity. but we are very grateful to Dr. Kelechukwu, and I hope you guys will follow him on LinkedIn and get all the insights you need as you prepare for your scholarship. We wish you a lot of luck in your scholarship application.
Absolutely. Okay, Siri, thank you, and thank you everyone for being part of the presentation today. I wish you all the best. Don't quit till you win. Until we all win, we are always work in progress. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.